If you don't have a pen and paper handy, you're going to want to pause this video for just a second, go get it, and then come right back, because you are going to find yourself thinking, I need to remember that an unbelievable number of times during this conversation. Welcome to Pixels, where we explore the heart and art photography. I'm Beth Bilo, and I am so glad that you're here. In this episode, I'm joined by photographer Brie Stockwell, and she's a kindred spirit in so many ways. In this wide-ranging conversation, we talk about what gets in our way as creatives and how we can remove those obstacles, how to focus on what really matters most, and she shares some really interesting behind-the-scenes stories to some of her favorite photos. Brie Stockwell is a landscape photographer, mom of four, musician, hiker, and success coach for creatives. While she's always owned a camera, it wasn't until 2019 that she decided to make her dream of becoming a professional photographer a reality. Now, as a certified life coach, she works with other creatives to overcome obstacles, to achieve goals, and tap into creative intuition in their personal and business practices. She's an internationally published, award-winning nature landscape photographer and is working towards publishing her first ebook. Making easy and meaningful connections with people is her superpower, and she uses its magic frequently in podcast appearances, workshops, presentations, and as the host of podcasts. Her two are called Wild Women in Photography, and she is the co-host of A Creative Affair with Len Metcalf. She calls Austin, Texas home, and she can often be found exploring the desert Southwest or wherever there are dunes or magical light. As always, a quick thank you to naturephotographyclasses.com and their Inspired Creator Grant. You can learn more and submit your own application at naturephotographyclasses.com/inspired-creator. And that link is in the description. Let us know in the comments what you find most useful or helpful about this conversation. And please like, subscribe, and share. We would love for this content to be heard by as many people as possible. So I hope you have that pen and pencil right by your side, and let's get to the conversation. Hey, Brie, welcome to Pixels. So glad that we have connected.
Yay. Me too. When I heard you on Matt Payne's podcast, the F-Stop, I'll say the full thing. F-Stop, collaborate, and listen. You're welcome, Matt. I was like, Beth, we are kindred spirits. We need to connect. I mean, I don't know if I don't think I messaged you, but I was like, oh, I know that we need to connect. And then you reached out to me and I was like, yes, of course. This was inevitable.
Synchronicity.
It's fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, my ears must have been burning.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. So I already know from some of the conversation we've had before we even started that you've got a lot to smile about. But I do want to start out by asking, what is making you smile today?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, what's funny is my mom, I'll tell you this. My mom said I was always smiling. Like she would push me around in the grocery store and she was like, people would just stop and say, what a pretty baby you were. She goes, thanks, Mom. She would be like, not that you were particularly pretty, but she's not like that. But sometimes babies look weird. You know what I mean? Like little kids. Anyway, but she was like, not that you were like this most gorgeous baby, but your smile just like brought people to you. And I feel like that is kind of like a theme for my life. So I'm glad she told me that. So life, the answer is life, but also I have two things. And you know, one of them is I'm a brand new grandma. My first grandbaby was born a week and a half ago, and he is so pretty.
He's perfection, right?
He is perfection. Oh my gosh. So after we record this, I'm going to go see him. So, and then my second thing is photography related. I finally, after I don't how many years, just bought a new camera. So I've upgraded to a Sony A7R5 and I'm so excited because I'm like touching it and, you know, bringing it with me, and I still have to set it all up, but it feels so nice. So I can tell I know. Well, you know, before go, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, they say it's not about the gear, but sometimes the gear is definitely happiness inducing.
Hello, yes. And you know what's funny is you and I were chatting before, so all the good conversation already happened, y'all. Just kidding. Um, so Beth and I are actually both trained musicians, and
Yeah.
Beth is a clarinetist, and I'm a flutist. And you when you play an instrument for hours and hours and hours on end, you know when you've outgrown your
Yeah.
instrument.
Yes.
And when your abilities have progressed
Hmm.
further than what you can achieve with your current instrument. And so I think it's a case of that. I've been needing it for
Yeah.
a while. Plus there's a couple of like little buggy things, going on. But yeah, it's time for an upgrade. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you guys don't like, Sony is doing this really fantastic warranty thing where if you buy a new camera, and before September 30th, they tack on an extra year of their warranty. And I'm like, I can't resist that. So it was on sale
That's
and I did that
bonus.
anyway. So yeah, can't pass that
Exciting.
up. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting.
I've,
So thanks. Plus my
me, I'd
grandbaby.
be
And I
torn.
take
I
pictures.
know I'd be torn. I'd be like, grandbaby, new camera,
Well, they
grandbaby, new
work
camera.
together because I
They
photographed my
do.
grandbaby with the camera. So it works.
Exactly. And we were talking about how you can make worlds collide before we were talking. So there
That's
you go.
right.
You get
There you
double the
go.
smiles.
So good.
Well,
I love that
congratulations on
question.
both counts.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So great.
As I do with everyone that I talk to, and I take a look through your images. I kind of see what speaks to me. What am I seeing in this about this person? And what was interesting to me, and I don't see this as a bad thing. So let me preface this. What was interesting to me is I saw a lot of serenity. I saw a lot of peace. I saw calm. I saw almost quiet. And if somebody hasn't experienced you yet, they might hear me say those things and say, that's not what I expected. Because Brie is clearly this very gregarious, smiling, outgoing person. Um,
Clearly.
and so I want to ask what gives? What's the deal?
Like when you wrote on your question, you wrote, "What's the deal?"
What's the
Like, oh,
deal?
this is so, I know. I
I
think
sat there
that's
for
so
like five
great.
minutes, like, what's my question? And then I just thought, what's the deal?
Right. What's the deal with that? And I had to think about this because this is such a great question. I've thought about this actually a lot. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I feel drawn in my color images towards some of the more subtle parts of nature. And I don't think this is all my color images. I think it's large portion of them
Mhm.
that I spend a lot of time in White Sands National Park, and to me, I just feel a lot of peace and serenity there. And so I think that translates to a lot of different places. And also, I have these two sides of my life. One is, for years, I was just running around with my kids and going here and going there, and always kind of feeling like a disorganized hot mess. I've said this to my a friend recently, and she was like, "Brie, you're like the most organized person I know." And I'm like, I don't know about that. Maybe you should come spend more time with me. But what I've been doing over the past few years is trying to create more, for lack of a better term, inner peace
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
have more moments of serenity in my life, even when there's chaos around, even when, like, I think about, like, in White Sands, there's crazy blowing sand. You can't hear anything. I've got goggles on. It's the opposite of peace. It's total chaos. And yet I can feel that. I can go, okay, wow. Like I can just be in the moment and have inner peace while chaos is going on around me. So I think there's that part,
Yeah.
that side of me that wants that. And then there's the other side of me. So I noticed in some of your questions, I kept thinking back to this. I bought an infrared camera. It's actually a
Mhm.
full spectrum, and I put filters on it. That has been one of the most beautiful things because I can now have these images that are very contrasty, and I find myself drawn to that, like powerful things. And I
Mm-hmm.
also find myself personally in my life, I'm pushing my boundaries currently,
Yeah.
which is so interesting. I'm 49. I'm doing this thing this year called Countdown to 50. So,
Woohoo!
but what's cool, I know, but what's cool about it, what I've noticed is over the past few years, I'm also really pushing my boundaries, and I'm like, and what more can I do? And so I
Yeah.
think there's this contrast in my life between this desiring inner peace, which you can have all the
Mm-hmm.
time if you want, and really pushing on, like, adventuring and pushing on myself and getting outside my box and creating these spaces that feel a little bit more wild, right? Hence,
Yeah.
you even
Yeah.
wrote in your
Hence the
question, like,
wild women.
is it wild women in photography? And I'm like, yeah, maybe it is. But also, this is, I think, for to be truthfully honest, I think it's like a reflection of what I'm doing internally, which is
Mm-hmm.
quiet, and the other space where I'm like, let's go. Yeah, chain ladders,
Yeah.
whatever. You won't catch me skydiving though.
Well, I want to share some of these images that we're talking about, right? So let's put some visual to this. This is one of the inner peace images I'm imagining.
Yeah, this is actually the Mesquite Dunes in Death Valley, and I actually went to the Out of Chicago, the Out of Death Valley
Mm-hmm.
conference, and we were there with a group, and I was there with Cole Thompson. Oh my gosh, why can't I remember his name? Brother John.
John
I can't remember
Barclay.
his last. Thank you. I have so
Yes.
much going
Yeah.
on in my head right now. So,
It's all
by
good.
the way, John Barclay.
We won't tell him that you remembered Cole and not John,
No,
because
but I call him Brother John. So that's why I'm like,
that's
what
why.
is his? And he's actually the one that, like, pushed me into he helped facilitate my infrared camera
Mm,
purchase, which is,
nice.
it's one of the best things. I felt compelled to do it, which is really weird.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been one of the best. So anyway, we're out on the dunes with a group. And, Cole's, of course, photographing black and white things and helping
Right.
people, and everyone's doing their thing. And beforehand, I had said, I'm driving separate because I'm going to stay. And they're like, we're going to convince
Mm.
you not to stay. I'm like, I'm absolutely going to stay. So,
Mm-hmm.
and because I love this time of evening, and
Mm-hmm.
there's been some wonderful photographers that have come before me that I have learned things from. Twilight on the dunes is a magical
Mm.
experience, and I
Yeah.
always want that. And so being able to see with my camera this really soft, subtle light is
Mm-hmm.
just magical. And so I always want that. I'm like, yeah, because this is my moment of just being really present with my
Yeah.
photography, just experiencing and noticing small details. And so that's what this one is about.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
the shadows, and I love watching like the different colors of twilight change on the dunes. It's cool.
Yes. And this is bringing to mind. Did you ever watch the show Mad About You?
Yes.
Did you ever watch Mad About You?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
The episode I remember the most was with Yoko Ono, who was
Oh
the
gosh.
guest star. And of course, Paul was a videographer, documentarian, filmmaker. And she said, I want you to photograph the wind. I want you to capture the wind. And he was like, what on earth is she talking about? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, okay, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this, but of course in the episode, it's supposed to be this, impossible task. And so I think of that, it might seem random, but I think of that when I see
It's
this
funny.
image, because I feel like, with that swoop and those ripples that are coming down, it's like I can see the wind
Mm.
in some way. I can see the motion. It's like I can imagine that sweeping through here.
And
So
yet it was
Yoko
totally
Ono
still.
it was totally still. Well, the wind at some point probably moved it,
Right,
or
exactly.
water,
It's the remnants of it, right?
it's the remnants.
Hmm.
It's the echoes of that
Hmm.
wind. And
A
so Yoko
visual
Ono
representation.
I think Yoko would be pleased with this. So
I hope so.
anyway, I just had to share that because
I
I
love
think of that
that.
so often.
Now I will think of it when I'm out there.
Excellent. Excellent. So tell us about this one.
Yeah. So again, out on the dunes, like this is white sands. When I'm out there, it's actually, unless there's wind
Hmm.
and you're out on the big dunes, there's really no noises
Yeah.
to speak of. Yeah, it's almost like you can hear like ringing in your ears because it's so silent, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's an Air Force base or whatever, so sometimes planes fly over, but that's it. And
Hmm.
especially when the sun goes down or sun, the sun sets and it's just you and this edge of the day
Hmm.
and things almost feel
Hmm.
even quieter, which is
Yeah.
crazy to me. And this is just like, to me, this is just like that quiet peace you feel. And so that's like, I have peace in the day. I have peace in the evening. I love finding this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so quiet. It's like I almost feel like just whispering,
Right.
because I feel like I'm breaking the spell if I
Right.
say
Yes,
anything.
exactly. Yeah, that exactly.
Um, yeah, there's something suspended in this.
And there's a
That's
lot
really
of
gorgeous.
it's like a musical note. If you hold
Hmm.
for 16
Hmm.
counts, y'all, if you're musicians, you know this. If you hold for 16 counts, you just don't hold it at the same dynamic level, volume.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so even here, you still want it to be very subtly interesting. And so even
Yeah.
here, where there's a lot of negative space in between the tip of the dune and the moon, there's still something going on. There's
Yeah.
a little bit of
Absolutely.
subtle, you know, there's some subtle interest. It's like just enough to keep it interesting.
Hmm.
And I'm always looking
Hmm.
for this. What's just enough to keep it interesting?
Yeah.
Just enough. What puts me over the edge for that? It's fun.
Nice. Yeah. Beautiful. So I think this is a shift in the energy. Tell us what we're looking at here.
Well, I also realized too, my energy shifts depending on my location, as
Hmm.
one would expect, right?
Right. Right.
And like you and I were just talking about, being in like basically a rainforest. Like there's these differences in place.
Hmm.
And for me, different places have different energy. Now, when I'm out in Caddo Lake, it's not just Caddo Lake, but there's all these little offshoots and I kayak
Hmm.
through them. And I take women to do this, by the way.
Hmm.
But
Hint,
that's really
hint.
fun. Right. Come join me. Um, wink. So it's actually a really magical experience,
Hmm.
but the trees, it's a totally different experience the, because of the location, it's
Hmm.
very, very chaotic.
Yeah.
And I'm like I'm almost looking to simplify the chaos, but I want it to feel like, here it is, I want
Hmm.
it to kind of
Hmm.
feel more punchy, and this isn't as punchy as it could be. This is my toned down version of punchy. So, um, but there's things happening and I love that. I
Hmm.
love the dynamics of the sun coming up and the mist rising off the lake. And yeah, I think it really is sort of about place as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny you said you used the word punchy, and the word that came to me was there's a charge to it.
Yeah.
There's a different charge than, like, there was almost, and again, not in a bad way, there was almost no charge, in those more serene. Those were ones that just really like you sink into.
Yes.
This is something that like kind of makes you sit up a little bit more on the edge of your seat. It still
hmm
has a peaceful feeling, but it also has a different energy, um,
Yes. I
that
love that. I
is
love that
really
photographs can do
appealing.
this, by the way.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's so
And then
fun.
this is so gorgeous. Is this a cypress tree? I'm still like,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
so.
Yeah. So in East Texas, same place as the previous image, there is, it's basically a flooded cypress forest. It's the
Mhm.
largest in the world or minimum the US. And you can just float around these trees that just kind of appear out of the water. And because it's kind of a humid place,
Mm-hmm.
you get this Spanish moss hanging off of them. Some have a lot, some have a little bit, depends on how old or their location or whatever. And they're all really like a lot of them are interesting characters like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's really fun to explore. I kind of almost feel like, tell me what you think. I put this in the like more dynamic, energetic category because it feels darker to me. Like there's this like
Right. It's a little
mysterious.
mystery.
There's a like the moss is getting backlit. Like it feels
Yeah.
not just peaceful, it feels like heavy almost,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
spooky heavy. and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um and I love that, but it kind of almost bridges the gap for me
Yeah.
between the two.
Yeah.
So, which is interesting.
Yeah. I would say the same. And as we're looking at it, and after having seen the other ones, this one does
Hmm.
seem like it's a melding a little bit. I think parts that the cool tones kind of
Yeah.
contribute to that, kind of bringing down the charge a little bit, and yet there's that light and there's the reaching of the branch there
It's
that I
like the
just that
Grim Reaper and his
curve.
sickle. I see the Grim Reaper with his sickle.
Now that's dark.
Hey, I'm
That
there
is
over
dark.
Halloween this year. I'm all in.
You're all in with the darkness.
It's
Yeah.
going to be so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right? By the way, this is fun
Yes.
to talk about your photos. So, for the
Oh,
audience, if
good.
you aren't doing this in your own photography and having conversations about it, just go do it. Like, have
Yeah.
conversations with your friends about this stuff. That's
And
fun.
especially being able to, and I appreciate that if so far every guest has allowed me to do a little bit of banter with them and like saying, well, here's what I see a little bit, or here's what it brings up for me. And
Right.
that is, I think that's such a valuable, if we're open to it, it's such a valuable exercise because it expands our own vision and our own attachment maybe to what we think that photo is about. There's something that we know that it's about because we were the creators of it. It was our eyes, our finger that pressed the
Hmm.
shutter and all of that. I realized this when I wrote a book. I said, like, this book is me, but once it leaves my hands and it goes into somebody else's hand, this book belongs to them. It's not about me anymore. It's about their interpretation, their experience, what they like, what they don't like, what works, what doesn't work. And I've come to kind of think of photos the same way. Like, it's mine to a certain degree, but once it's out there, it's not mine anymore.
Sounds
I
like
don't
you've
know.
been reading Big Magic.
Oh, I haven't, but I do like Elizabeth Gilbert. And
I
I
mean,
have that book on my Kindle, but does
she
she
says the
speak
same
of something like
thing.
that?
She's like, "What?
Yeah.
It's yours." And then when you release it out to the world, then everyone gets to interpret it how they want
Yeah.
to, and it doesn't have to be so precious anymore.
Yes. Precious.
Yes.
Exactly. And
Yes.
and it can help us, the slings and arrows, if we
Hmm.
experience those, because we can look at it and say, well, yes, I produced that and it's out there. And how you're responding to it is as much about, or if not more, about you and your life experiences, your filters, your biases.
But I think this is interesting talking about the slings and the arrows
Oh,
because,
that's right. I was wondering what I
yeah,
was talking
yeah.
about.
So for all of you, Beth like had a coughing fit and now we're just clipping back and it's
Yep.
fine. So,
It's all
but
good.
I know I was just thinking about what you said about slings and arrows and I'm like, oh, what's cool is to like back up and not even consider them that anymore. Cause I'm like,
Right.
those things are just words now. That's just
Yeah.
words from people. And part of it is about like putting it out there and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and then just releasing it and
Yep.
and being able to just go, people are going to say words about my stuff, it means
Yep.
nothing. Or
Yeah.
maybe some people you want to consider what they say, right?
You go to
But
Brene
there's
Brown, and who's in the arena? If you're in the
right.
arena with me, if you are doing the hard work, if you've got blood, sweat, and tears, you're putting yourself on the line, you're making yourself vulnerable, I will listen. If you're up in the cheap seats, then I don't have time for that.
Right. And I don't have energy to listen to what everyone has to say,
Mm-hmm.
like about
Yeah.
I just don't. I
Yeah.
if I wanted to give energy to it, I wouldn't have the time to do all the other things that I do, including my creative work. And so my creative work
Yeah.
suffers when I listen to it more, because it pulls my energy in a direction that I do not like. And so, or I
Right.
don't want.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Well, I can go
yeah,
all woo woo. We can say, don't give
we
away your
could.
power. Don't give away your power.
Separate
Just
offshoot podcast episode with just Brie and Beth talking about
don't give away your
coaching work.
power. Coaching work and
I know.
all that we could get all woo woo with the best of them. So
You guys are going to get more of it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
there you go. I know it's coming. It's coming. So I do want to actually, that's a nice little transition because I was listening to a recent episode that you did with Shauna Perkins, and you said something really important, and this was near the beginning. And you were talking about bringing some women together for a retreat kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, we have worked to make these things happen. You can't just hope that it comes to you. And maybe that jumped out at me because sometimes I have fallen in the hope, like if I just keep showing up, somebody will notice me and, all of that. And no, it's like, no, you've got to work for it. So in your role as a coach, and as as a photographer, melded here as an artist, what patterns have you noticed that snag us up from making things happen?
I thought through this one. I had to make a few notes on it because I think there's so many out there, because honestly, we all have little things in our lives that could snag us up. But I think overarching, one of the things that I see that snag us are our beliefs. So specifically, beliefs that limit us in certain ways. I want to pause here because I think it's important in this answer to define what a belief is. And, maybe you have a different belief. Even Beth, maybe you have a different opinion about what exactly a belief is. But for me, simplified, it's thoughts that I think over and over again until I believe that they're truth. That is it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so are you agreeing with me?
I am agreeing with you.
And what's beautiful about that is we can change them, just because we think them or we have thought them for so long, we can change them. And so the pattern I see, though, the actual pattern, that if you're talking about a pattern, is believing these things over and over and over again. Just cycling through them and reinforcing them for yourself. We all have beliefs about certain things. And some of the things I see that are more limiting for us as creative people are our capabilities. What are we capable of? If you asked me 5 years ago if I was capable of being right here, I'd be like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. But as I drop those things and believe new things about myself, then all things so many more things are open to possibility, right? And so this is one thing I believe, that I am a creator. And I love believing that, because I'm not just creating photographs, but I'm an actual creator. This does sound a little woo. I want to believe I created this conversation. We both created this conversation. It didn't just happen to me. And 100%, if you hadn't have reached out to me, I would have reached out to you. Right? So I think having that belief that I am a creator is, I'm not just hoping for things. I'm I am going to go create that in my world. And because I believe that, I now want to be really careful about the things I go to try and create, because I think so often we're I hope this happens. I hope this happens. I hope this happens. And then all of a sudden we're if all of those things happened, would you really want them? And so I think there's right. So we want to also be mindful and intentional about the things that we create, right? When I was creating, I already have one podcast. I already had one podcast. And when I was thinking about creating Wild Women in Photography, I was like, do I really want to do that? Is that something that I want to take on? Excuse me. Another pattern that I see, a belief pattern that I think is limiting, is what we just talked about, which is what other people think of us, and believing that other people are so often I think we don't put ourselves out there to be vulnerable because we're believing that other people think certain things about us. And
Yeah.
what if that wasn't even true, right? And so dropping some of those things, that unhelpful thinking, whether or not you care, but what if people were always thinking amazing things about you?
Right. Why not assume the opposite,
Right, right. And so it's that
Yeah.
pattern we get ourselves into is like,
Mm-hmm.
people are going to think I'm crazy. People are going to think
Mm-hmm.
this. What are, maybe
Well,
that doesn't even
well,
have
let
to
me
be a
say,
thing,
if,
right?
if you if you go into my Instagram feed and you see something, I'm sure you are not like tossing and turning in bed and saying, "What was Beth thinking? Oh my God, that was so awful." You're thinking about your photo and thinking, "What was I thinking?" I mean, But
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, most people are not thinking about other people. We're thinking about ourselves, and so like we
Right,
overestimate, I think, how much impact we have, and that's not to
right.
diminish, but we really overestimate.
Totally. And it would be awesome. Wouldn't it be more awesome if the pattern that we got into was going, what's possible? Like,
Yes.
what's possible for me? What new things are
Mm-hmm.
possible for me? How can I, so instead of just hoping, what can I create now? What can I create
Mm-hmm.
now? If I want something, if I really, really want something, I'm not just hoping for it. I'm 100% creating it.
Yeah, absolutely. You just brought up something that I heard last night that I loved. My husband and I had dinner with this lovely couple, and we were planning on eating outside, and there was a 20% chance of rain. And when her husband told her that, she said, "Well, let's live in the 80%." And I was like, "Ooh, let's live in the 80%. Like, why focus on the
Mm-hmm.
20%?" And often we are focused on the 1% instead of the rest of it. So you've given
Yeah.
us this really great reminder about where to put our attention, where to put our energy.
Go do your creative work. Go make things happen. Be a creator of all
Yes.
things.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
I just love believing that about myself.
Yeah.
It gets me
Yes.
further than just hoping, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a place for hope. There absolutely
Yes.
is. I think hope is such a beautiful thing, especially when we don't have control over something. But I get to create so many other things in my life. I am a creator. It goes on my list of things I believe about myself.
What else do you believe about yourself?
Mm. Oh, this is fun. Okay. Remember, I'm in the middle of actually creating more of the list. I am a woman I'm a woman with a strong body that loves to create an even stronger one. I know it's going to sound a little woo, but I love believing I am love.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Yeah.
more, but I even
Yeah.
have,
No,
look,
that's beautiful.
I got a little heart tattoo.
Oh, nice.
Because wouldn't it be better if we just had more love and
Yeah.
it's not even about people loving me. It's about me seeing good in other people and having more of that presence in my life. It's always what
Creating
I want
love.
more of. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it.
Um,
Haven't shared those, so
yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I want to pivot to your pivot pixels,
Pivot.
and talk
By the way,
pivot.
hang
Do you
on.
see what I
Anyone
did
who's
there?
watched Friends, I just watched the Friends episode that's all about Ross pivoting. So if you haven't watched that, it's funny.
Oh,
So
okay. We'll have
pivot.
to
Anyway, yeah.
pivot.
Yeah.
I know it's probably
Sorry
one of
for
those
that.
words that's gotten yeah
Yeah.
over
Let's pivot
saturated
to
the
the
market.
pivot.
So Brie, this is your first pivot pixel. What's the story behind this?
It looks a little muddy now, but what's fun is when I first kind of started this new photography journey at the end of 2019, I was just trying to get out there and make photographs. And, there's a lot of failure, like a ton of failure. And it's fine because it's all practice. I had to wrap my head around that too, that, wasn't just going to come like super quick and easy. Maybe some things came easy and some things didn't. Some things I was going to really have to work on. And I spent about 6 months like making photos because I was so intimidated by editing. Like I was like making photos. And then I was like, I really have to learn how to actually do the editing,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't just come out most of the time.
It's not straight out of camera kind of thing.
Right? Especially when
Yeah.
you're new. And
Yeah.
so I had to go watch, I had to watch all kinds of things. I bought, like I bought courses. I bought at least one course. I think I bought Nick Page's Photoshop course. Anyway, just a
Mm-hmm.
little plug for Nick Page. I decided I was going to sit down one day and edit. And I picked this one. I don't know why. It
Mm-hmm.
seems pretty difficult, but
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
hadn't
It's
yet
not
been to,
maybe my first go-to that
no, but I hadn't yet been to White Sands.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? This image is going to teach me a lot of things, and it doesn't have to be
Yes.
perfect. I just want to learn. I think I edited this about a zillion times in the same
Mm.
day and even beyond. I had to figure out like what a layer was in Photoshop. Like it's very, very slow. And I cried because, I think the crying wasn't like I was mad. I think it was just like a
Mm-mm.
stress release, to be honest.
Yes.
But I remember doing that with this one, and I had it I did a solo exhibition of my year of photography, of my year of,
Mm-hmm.
of all of these things in March of 2021. And this was one of my images. And because I just had to have the first image that I edited. And
Yeah.
that wasn't a thought in my head when I was editing, but I feel like this is pivotal because
Mm-hmm.
this helped me really learn how to edit. And if I didn't like how it went, I just backed all the way up and started over, right? There's cloned out stuff. Like I taught myself like cloning,
Mm-hmm.
not that I had to, but like wanted to. So
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
like, oh, what does this need? What does this need? And instead of just slapping a bunch of stuff on there and going done, I really wanted to take my time and be thoughtful about the editing process. So I felt like that would set me up. Well, it's kind of like practicing etudes.
Exactly. I've used that analogy so many times, scales and etudes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And it doesn't have to be your best one, but they can also sound great on their own, in a way.
Yes.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's what this one was for me.
Yeah.
And I
Beautiful.
don't think it's half bad, to be honest.
I think it's beautiful. The light is really wonderful
Yes.
over
Yeah.
the trees here, and you just get this little hint of a little creek kind of coming through here.
Where do you
Yeah.
think this is?
Oh, I have no idea. Utah?
Because it's like
Texas?
red. No.
Yeah, because of the red.
Right. So this is a place called Providence Canyon State Park, and it's in Georgia.
Georgia. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful.
And
Yeah.
it totally looks different when you're down on the bottom, but
Right.
anyway.
But it's a great, I'm so glad you asked that, because it's a great reminder that like every time I would see, after I went to Death Valley, every time I saw a dune, I assumed it was Death Valley, right? we can forget,
Right.
Especially if we've not traveled far and wide, that number one, multiple places have similar sorts of landscapes, but they are their own, their own mood, their own light, their own weather. And there are endless places to go with endless beauty that is unexpected. And I think that's what's so fun, is like the surprise of discovering something like I was not expecting this, but wow.
Right. Exactly. And this was just a quickie, like, let's just drive over to that state park and see, like, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't think something has to be like a big photography to do. It can
Right.
just be
Right.
like a popover and let's go see. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes those are the best surprises because you don't have any expectations
We'll talk about
going
that.
into them. Okay, cool.
Foreshadowing.
Cool. And this is just absolutely gorgeous. Tell us about
Thank you.
this.
You know what? So this image, this was my like final image in my like exhibition. And I took
Mm-hmm.
this one in 2020 when I was sort of new photographer, and I actually still really love it. I love the light.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
love the colors. And I like with this one, I like impressed myself that I was able to. So there's two reasons why this is pivotal for me, right? Like one is I was like, wow, I actually think this is a good photo. Like one of like, this is my first sort of like, this is a really good photo. And then number two is this was on a trip where I fell in love with the place.
Yeah.
And it's actually this image feels like a representation of the catalyst of so much of what I've created in the future. And I really think that's a beautiful thing. I love the
Yeah.
colors. You
Yeah.
can't.
They
It was so
are.
hot.
Yeah.
End of August
Oh,
in New
oh,
Mexico. It
ouch.
was
Oh,
hot.
I'm getting hot just thinking about it.
I
Yeah.
know, but I went anyway. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm compelled. I have to go. So I did a solo trip.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I had never done a solo trip ever before, like by myself.
Mm,
Like I'm like, I'm a suburban mom that's homeschooled and I cook dinner and all, we carpooled to swim team and all the things. That kind of was dwindling away. And I found myself as as moms do, with that, a little bit more freedom. And I was like,
hmm
I'm just going to go do this solo trip. And my husband was like,
Yeah.
yeah, go. And my friends are like, wait, what are you doing? You're going by yourself. You're going to be okay. I'm like, okay, fine. It's just fine. Just fine. I got this. Yeah. So that's
Totally.
kind of like a three for in one.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
So fun.
Yeah. This is so stunning. Yeah. Thank you. And then another Dune
Mm-hmm.
image.
Yeah, but I
What's the
had to
story
include,
behind this one?
yeah, so I had to include this one because this was my first visit to White Sands, also solo,
Mm. hmm
where I went to go experience the winds. They have
Mm.
windstorms between like February and April in spring, early spring to late spring. And I'm like, I got to go when it's windy. So what do I need to do? And I just went. But I remember being there and going, this is incredible. Like this is a first experience being in these kind of conditions, sort of my first like adverse weather
Mm.
conditions as a photographer,
hmm
And
hmm
I remember this because I remember seeing the sand. I remember seeing the sand like kind of flying up, and the sun peeked out and it backlit all of the
Yeah.
sand at sunset, like right at the right moment. And I ran. I remember running up the dune. I booked it. I was like, I
Yeah.
see what's happening, but it can't, like, I can't photograph it from here. So like I ran fast. Now I'm in better
Wow.
shape so I can run faster. but I ran, and I think I have 2 frames of this,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
because then the light
Right.
goes quickly. And so this one is also a twofer because I submitted this one to a New Mexico magazine. They do a contest every
hmm
year. And I submitted it and thought, I got some of those. I got some New Mexico stuff. I submitted it and I won the whole thing. This was the
Wow.
grand prize winning
Congratulations.
photograph. And I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
what? Also, I created that.
Yes, you did create that in so many ways.
Right. And so I'm like, that this feels like pivotal because it's my first time in that space to, experiencing that, but also being able to win something as a
hmm
photographer. Not that
hmm
it tells me my photographs have merit, but it was kind of like, wow,
Yeah.
what else could I do?
It's very
So,
encouraging.
right.
It's like a nudge
Yeah.
that you're
And how
moving in
fun
the
is
right
it?
direction.
Right. And how fun is it to get your image published in a
Yes.
magazine and da da da, all the things.
Oh, very
It's
cool.
just so fun. So, anyway,
Yes. Yeah. Well,
that's that one.
I'm curious if this is true for you, especially since your mantra, your belief, I believe I'm a creator.
Hmm.
Part of the creative cycle is seeing your work out in the world. It's like part of what, for me anyway, it's like part of
Yeah.
what completes. It's not even the completion, but it's a necessity for me to feel completion with an image.
Yeah. I want to share it. Like,
Yeah,
I want that. I want things to go out into the world. Right.
yeah. And it's so satisfying when you see it
Yeah.
out there and people are
Yeah. It
enjoying
is
it.
fun. Yeah. Yeah, and seeing people enjoy it. Like when I did my exhibition, I didn't know the satisfaction of people seeing your work in person and then commenting on
Yeah.
it and having discussions about it. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's so gratifying. Like
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
totally different doing it in person than like sharing on Instagram and having the conversation, you know. I mean, you can do
Absolutely.
that, but in person, there's just something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't go off on a tangent. But I'm remembering the first time I had a few pieces in an exhibition, like a juried show where they were for
Mm,
sale, and being in the room while people were looking at my art and looking at other people's art, and people walking by as if they didn't even see it, people stopping and lingering and having a conversation. I think that's something that we all need to do. I won't go into, like, all of the different pieces of that, but just the way I put it, and this is your word, wild, but it's like it's out in the wild. At least for me, it shifted my relationship to it a little bit and was very informative.
yeah. And it's also like there's a lot of vulnerability involved with that
Yes.
because also kind of feels like a piece of you that people are
Yeah.
like looking at. So it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of a weird thing to navigate. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do I
Yep.
care? What do I think about it now? Am I silently judging it still? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
all
and
that.
and sometimes I see it as like I'm seeing it through their eyes. Like if I'm
Mm,
imagining myself standing in front of it, I don't know the artist, I don't know the story behind this. We can't completely divorce ourselves from that information, but just for a second, it helped me to kind of see it from the outside in a new way.
mm, yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that for sure.
I'm
I
guessing
can't remember
infrared.
what I can't remember what this one. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is one of my first favorite images with my infrared. And I also feel like, so this is in Zion National Park, and I feel like Zion is usually photographed in color, mostly because there's a lot of red rock and green trees and the contrast. Otherwise, it just kind of gets muddy and chaotic. This to me is a pivotal photograph because this this is now expanding my vision of what's possible. This was like 11 a.m. No
Mm,
special time. Could be taken any time of day, right? The clouds were moving back and forth, hence you see some shadows. This is a representation of sort of a new ability, my ability to see things in a new way. And I really love that. So this is like one of my very favorite black and whites with my infrared. And there's like so many things to notice in it. That's like a little
yeah.
treat. And I actually didn't even notice all of it until I started looking even closer. And I'm like, that's cool. And
Isn't that
also I
fun?
want to say, right. And also to me, this was like because I had been practicing making sense out of chaos, like really photographing trees. And I've been honing my composition skills. And I actually made this one fairly quickly. And I
Hmm.
surprised myself here because I was like, oh, there's a lot of separation. Like you can see the left side of the tree does not touch the top of the mountain. It doesn't, you know what I mean? Like there's a
Yep.
lot of things that work well for me in
Hmm.
this one compositionally.
Yeah.
And I did it pretty quickly. And I'm like, I think I'm getting a hang of this. Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Finally. so
Yeah.
so it felt
So
like really
validating.
successful in that way. You know what I mean? And I think we should all
Yeah.
congratulate ourselves and see where we're successful. I think it's really
Yes.
helpful as a creative person to be able to do that for ourselves. And
Yeah.
this was one of those for me.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you
So
for
fun.
sharing. Yeah, I love the stories behind them. I love the two furs and three furs. There's
I didn't know
like
there was all that. Hmm.
all those multiple layers. You started on this journey in 2019, like officially, planting your flag as a professional photographer. Yeah, and you're saying professional? Is that what you were? The air
I t-
quotes were?
no, a photographer
No,
because I always
photographer.
so yeah. So I'll interject and say I always had a camera and I think I said this in my bio too, is I always had a
Mm-hmm.
camera, but I didn't do the practice. And I just kind of carried it
Mm.
around like one day, oh, it's this. One day I hope to be a photographer. I hope.
Right.
I hope.
Right. I hope.
And so in 2019, I said, I said I'm going to be a photographer. And then I had to tell myself later that I was one. So that was a part of it. Yeah. Planting my flag. Yeah. I was really kind of a beginner and I didn't know anything about nature and landscape photography. So switching all the way over to like being a professional within like 5 years is kind of nuts to me. But I really
Yeah.
did put myself through sort of a master's like program. Not for
Right.
real,
Like a
but
boot camp.
yes, for real. And then just, I am a creator. I'm constantly like creating. Okay, what do I want to do next? I'm creating that. I'm creating that. Yeah. Just make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Offshoot. Go
So
finish
now
your
you're,
question.
well, now you're 5 years into it,
Yeah.
and you've probably got some wisdom that's been gained, hard won wisdom. What wisdom
Hmm.
would you share with that 2019 Brie that might give her a boost of some kind?
I'll say this, Brie, the past Brie didn't need anything. I wouldn't need anything necessarily to do that
Mm-hmm.
because I always think that things turn out in the best way possible. Like where I am now is because I went through all those things. But
Yeah. Yeah.
if I had to play what if, which I will play, one is, and this is really focused on like power. I really wanted like, I comfort. Yeah. Anyway, I really felt like I wanted power for her. And
Mm-hmm.
one is all possibilities are available to you. Don't limit yourself. All possibilities are available to you. And what would that look like? And number two, and I love this, I'm stealing it from my friend Colette because she says this so often with all kinds of different things. She says, it's even better than you can imagine.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
what I want to tell Brie in 2019 is whatever journey you think you're on, how it turns out and how it continues to go is even better than you can imagine. And I love that so much because
Yeah.
yeah, I'm creating things, but it's also even more amazing than I ever thought could be possible. Right.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I love believing that it's even better than I can
Yes.
imagine.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. I'm gonna absorb that. I hope other people who are listening are going to absorb that. And there you go. You've got it on the
Put it
post-it.
on your sticky
It's
note, stick it on your computer. Do that right now. If you like want to adopt
mhm.
it, just go put it on a sticky note and stuff it wherever you are in your car or wherever. There you go.
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect.
Pro tip, if you want to
A little
believe
piece
that.
of brie.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, amen. Yeah, totally.
Well, what do you and I think I might have some images to share with this, but what are you most excited about creatively these days? And tell me if you want me to pull up anything.
I did not start playing with this until recently because I'm like, I really kind of just want to have the photography thing like really down. But
Mm-hmm.
also, I want to allow myself to play more. Going to White Sands in my most recent trip, I did a creative photography retreat there in April. And I started playing with this because it's a creative photography retreat. And so it is the place to play. And
Yes.
I see this now as an expansion of a bigger project that I'm working on. And I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
crap. Now I got to go back and do more. So that is exciting to me creatively, is playing
Yeah.
with technique more in a way that feels fresh and fun to me.
So this might be a pivot pixel in a little bit in terms of
Yeah,
representing a new kind of creative expansion.
absolutely. And we don't have to show the other one, but I am excited to play more with black and white photography. So this is actually a color image converted to black and white, which I haven't done a lot of, but I'm seeing things different because I've been working with infrared. So I'm excited to see more in black and white as I work with it, which
Mm-hmm.
is really, really fun. And then the other thing so the one thread that I'm really concentrating on in this next year creatively is creating more cohesive projects, not just like
Mm.
one-off photos, but creating
Yeah.
projects. And so something that I have coming out is actually, I already have a prototype done, and I had to do some editing on it, but I'm doing a zine. I'm going to do a series of zines. I don't know how long it'll take me to release them, but you and I were talking about, how to combine the things that we like. I've been thinking, how do I combine the things that I love doing, that I believe I'm good at? And so this zine to me it's like if my photography and my coaching had a baby. And it is a combination of that. And it's called, the zine series is called Through My Eyes. And this volume 1 is called Releasing Expectations. And I don't have it released yet. So Beth, will you put a link so people, you can get on my email list for Wild Woman Photography, and I will email you if you want to be like, so that the zine is coming. But anyway, I'm here with my daughter doing baby things. And so I have to just tidy all of that up. But that is, I'm so excited for this, because I think as creatives and photographers, like creatives of all types, I think releasing expectations is such a great, like, if we can do more of that, releasing some of the unhelpful things that hold us back, and inserting, like, I've heard this, release all expectations when you go on the landscape. And I'm like, I don't even think that's possible. Like, I was thinking about it. I'm like, it's just not possible. Like, you actually can't do it, because there's always something. And so if you're going to have something and that's going to be there, why not make it helpful for yourself? Why not make it, why not make those expectations into something that feel really amazing? And so that's kind of what I do in it. There's a bunch of white sands images in there that I share. And that's really fun. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, I will definitely share that link in the show notes.
Yeah. Awesome.
And,
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Really hope
that's a
people
fun
sign up for
project
that.
for me. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you've shared a few ways in which you've challenged yourself to see differently, see more creatively. What would you offer anyone who's listening to this and is feeling like they want to push themselves? How can they start to see things a little differently?
I've shared a bunch of stuff, including like open yourself to all possibilities, which kind of sounds a little trite, but I do think when you do that, then you start to see more possibilities. So there's that in general. And I was thinking, like, I'm sorry, I put my coachy brain on here, and I was like, do I want to see the world differently?
Yeah, right.
Like, so I think asking yourself if you want, like, do I want to see the world differently? And then if you do, see the beauty and imperfection. I really think when you can see, like, I think we have this filter of what is pretty or what has to be or how things have to look. And more often, lately, I've been looking at things and noticing that the things that seem like the chaos, things that feel like the imperfection. And I'm like, let's go, bring it on. And so if you want to see things differently, just learn to see more of the imperfection and then celebrate it. Learn to see the beauty in it, because I actually think that's what makes it releases a lot of the judgment that we have on things, right? And I think it opens up more possibilities for photography, for seeing differences in people, right? Like, I think in general, the more we can see, we can embrace imperfection, the better. I just think that that's it's just such a great thing to do in general. More peace.
Yeah. More peace.
More peace. No fighting with like, it has to be perfect. Yeah. I want more of it. And so imperfection. And then eventually you don't even see it as imperfection. You just go, oh, look at that. It's a little chaotic, or it doesn't feel like it's bad. It's like, look how beautiful that is. Right.
I'd wish I'd heard that before I went to a chaotic woodland. It might have helped not to be overwhelmed by that chaos. So accept the chaos.
Yeah. And it's so pretty. It's so beautiful when we can learn to see it that way, when we can see the beauty in all different kinds of situations, or, or landscapes, if you're a landscape photographer, which you don't have to be, right? But
right. Yeah, maybe the very thing that is flummoxing you is the thing.
Ooh, I
um,
like this. Yeah, like lean into
mhm.
that, right? If you're
Yeah,
confused by
yeah,
it, maybe like explore
that's
it
the thing.
more. In fact,
Hmm.
that's kind of, I had some photos for you, but we don't have to do that. But like, see a little bit deeper if you're
Yeah,
confused. Just go more deeply into it, right? Take the
yeah,
time. Such a good
yeah,
practice,
definitely.
always.
So before we sort of went from the current to the back, 2024 Brie to 2019, what's something that projecting into the future that we can do today that our future creative self will thank us for?
I think I already said it, and I think I said it because I wrote it down on a sticky note. And it's I honestly, and I'm highly focused on this because of my zine, but I really think in our creative work, especially in
Mm-hmm.
our creative work and in life, that it's helpful for this in life too, but in our creative work, if we can take away, if we can, first we have to notice these. We have to notice where we're expecting. Like if we can release
Mm-hmm.
these unhelpful expectations, right? Expectations unfulfilled lead to disappointment. I don't love feeling that way. When I'm feeling that way, I'm noticing, oh, that's why, right? So I give myself a lot of like grace and compassion there. But if I can identify some of those unhelpful expectations, like and I say this in my zine, like when I go out into the landscape, what am I expecting that I have to do here? What am I
Mm-hmm.
expecting has to be done here? If I can release some of that and then expect myself to, I think one of mine is like, I expect to experience awe. I'm absolutely in control of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no
Mm-hmm.
time that I don't, there's zero times now that I go out into the world and if I'm expecting to experience awe, that I don't experience it
Yeah.
because I'm absolutely in control of that. Right. And so it's identifying unhelpful expectations and then adopting or seeing what helpful ones that you already have and adopting new helpful ones to help take you there. Like it creates this like new energy, like there's this momentum behind them. And I just think we'll have less disappointment, we'll have way more fun doing creative work, and also it
Mm-hmm.
just takes away like some of the worry and stress involved with it. So
Yeah.
I just think if like one thing, I mean there's a myriad, but it one thing that you can do, if you could do that more, one at a
Mm-hmm.
time, bit by bit. Oh, it's such a great practice to do. So, anyway,
Yeah. Beautiful.
see if you can do that. And then buy my zine,
One,
and then you'll have more
yeah,
ideas.
and more ideas will come. And so, speaking of that, what's coming up that folks can, how can they get connected to you? What opportunities do you want them to be knowing about?
Awesome. So, thank you for that. I love this. I love being able to talk about. I've already talked about a few things. So, one is I'm doing a creative photography retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Another one in New Mexico next year. It's basically all inclusive. And we all share an Airbnb. And so the wonderful thing is, you have creative people around you, photographers that you can like feed off their energy. Pamela Sherlock, who you
Mm-hmm.
just had on, is
Yeah.
she is going to be she's like a guest pro. She's going to
Mm-hmm.
come and
Mm-hmm.
teach us
Great.
about some fun techniques and help out, and that's going to be really fun. So there's two of us. It's co-ed, so I typically do a lot of like women only things. That one's co-ed because everyone can have their own room,
Mm-hmm.
so that's really really fun, and that's next April 9th through 13th. Though, so there's a link for that.
Nice.
And then the other one is my zine. I'm going to have my zine. It's going to be digital. Pay what you will, which is fun. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to suggest an amount. What
No
I want is,
expectations.
yeah, well, what I want, I, I want this information in people's hands.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want you to have access to it. And if whatever you want to pay for it, you can. And then I'm also going to have some pre-orders for a physical copy. I just got to take care of those little details as things go. And then if you want personal, like one-to-one mentorship, I always offer that. There's you'll share a link, Beth, but I'm
Yes.
doing personal. I do both. I do all of it. So, so I do
All the
photography
things.
mentor. I do all the things, and I love it because what's wonderful is I love combining all the things that I love. So, so I do photography mentoring. I do I do coaching. So if you need, if you're stuck, you need, some help with your confidence and all kinds of things where we can combine the two into like this really beautiful, personal experience for you. And so I actually really love working one-on-one with people. And so that's, I also do that. So this
Awesome.
was really beautiful, Beth.
Thank you. I've so enjoyed it. And since folks who are listening to this or watching it are podcast people, you have 2 podcasts. Can you say something really quickly about how folks can find those?
Oh yeah. So one is called A Creative Affair. I'm a co-host with lens-based artist Len Metcalf. He's based in Sydney, so I've never met him in person. We met online and we created this podcast. Fun. Yeah,
that's
it's
so 2020s of you.
I know, 2021. But it's all about creativity. And so we talk about like the creative process, and we talk about some of the challenges with being a creative. And anyway, so sometimes we touch on photography, sometimes we talk about other things. And I really love doing that. Yeah. And then I also am the solo host of, which I created last year, Wild Women in Photography, because I wanted to elevate women in photography, but I wanted to hear their stories. I didn't just want it to feel like an interview. I want to hear more of like the behind the scenes. What kinds of stuff is happening to you? What are you doing? And it's just a way to chat with women and just hear more about them. Today, I released the 26th episode of that. So that is really,
congratulations.
really fun. So I'm inviting Beth to come on and chat with me. So we'll just have to set that up, Beth.
Oh, good. I will so look forward to that, because we know that we've got lots of ground to cover in lots of different arenas. Right? So so much to talk about. So more amazing than I imagined. So thank you so much, Brie. Thank you. And again, congratulations on your 26th episode, your new camera, and your new grandbaby, because you're now a Nana. And
I'm a BB. My grandma name is BB.
I was going to say BB. Okay, good.
Yeah,
BB.
It's so good. I just, I don't feel grandma-ish, so I'm,
You don't look grandma-ish, but well, thank you so much. And
thank you.
And yeah, just delightful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Bye, everyone.
Woo-hoo.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Let us know in the comments what was most useful or meaningful to you, and be sure to subscribe so that you're notified of future episodes. This channel is made possible in part by Nature Photography classes and their Inspired Creator Grant. You can learn more or submit your own application at naturephotographyclasses.com/inspiredcreator. Thank you again so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.